Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second day of the DCP Research Symposium. Those of you that were able to join yesterday, we had a fascinating and thought-provoking keynote speaker, as well as a highly exciting student poster presentation. Today, we are moving on to focus on faculty research, and I can assure you it's going to be a treat. So welcome everyone, and I'll hand over to Dr. Portillo to take us through what to expect today.
Thank you, Dean Enumba. Yes, yesterday was exciting, and today promises to keep that level of momentum up. Today we will be doing a number of things. We will be hearing from the newest members of our faculty who will introduce us to some of the research that they are deeply involved in. We will have panels on social justice and culture, on artificial intelligence, and punctuated between those panels and research vignettes, we will have some innovation spotlights that will look at what faculty or how they're applying research in their own creative scholarship, how they're working with others across campus, how they are integrating research into studio teaching. So welcome. I miss seeing all of you at our receptions and at our coffee and tea breaks that we normally have, but want to let you know we can create a bit of a sense of community through our chat. So if you have ideas, if you have questions, if you want to make comments, let's keep a running dialogue going through our chat feature. And Liz Hawk will be helping with, she'll be sort of fielding questions and dialogue between some of our sessions today. So, okay, let's jump into our first innovation spotlight that centers on the question, how do we design and create appropriate home modifications for people with mobility challenges, such as those battling Parkinson's disease? This particular study, which is the subject of our first innovation spotlight, was funded by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and was led by our own Sherry Aronson, professor and in the Schindberg Center for Housing Studies. Co-PIs on this project include Professors Ravi Srinivasan from the Emmy Rinker School of Construction Management and Dr. Shibu Valapur from the Department of Interior Design. This project is interesting from a number of levels, and it resonates for me personally. My mother battled Parkinson's for a number of years, but was fiercely determined to live in her own home until the end, and she did that. And yet, navigating that home environment was became increasingly challenging for her. So this project involved a host of collaborators on the University of Florida campus, including UF Health, the Department of Neurology, the College of Journalism and Communications. Together, the team built and tested a virtual reality tool called CODY, standing for Co-Design For You, to identify and find solutions for individuals such as my mother facing mobility challenges and moving throughout their own homes safely and easily. Let's watch the spotlight now and then hear from Shibu, who will bring us up to date on this project.
I'm a certified recreation therapist, and I love seeing people get excited about leisure and understanding what it means, how it can bring you joy and take you places you haven't been before. I was diagnosed 2.5, almost 3 years ago. It's really very unpredictable. It's not Parkinson's that kills you, it's the things Parkinson's sets up. I notice in the house that I slip up a little, like I have to catch myself. And every time I have one of these little missteps, I think that could have been the one. Because those falls can mean a broken hip, can mean you may never get back your full mobility. I've seen that.
50 to 60,000 new patients are diagnosed with Parkinson's every year. And it's estimated that there's about 1 million people living with Parkinson's disease in the US. Tremors are a very well-known symptom of Parkinson's, but about 30% of patients with Parkinson's disease don't have tremors. The diagnosis of Parkinson's relies, though, in finding slowness of movements. That's what really defines Parkinson's, the inability to perform fast, repetitive movements. Typically, we say that when you have seen one patient with Parkinson's disease, you have seen only one patient with Parkinson's disease because of the uniqueness of their specific symptoms.
How do we provide problem-solving home modifications for people like Allie with Parkinson's disease so they can move about and do everyday tasks more easily? This was the question for researchers at the University of Florida. A multidisciplinary team led by Dr. Sherry Erickson developed and tested a virtual reality system to help individuals with Parkinson's symptoms experience moving through home interior simulations with different design features. Participants wore a VR headset and held a controller. They walked on a mat with sensors that were able to calculate their speed, the number of steps it took, whether they were balanced on their feet, and other walking measures. The team examined how walking through different doorways with different widths and frame color may affect participants' movement. For example, people walk through standard doorways or doorways that were extra wide and met ADA standards. Some participants made their own changes in interior features by moving a hand controller to the door width from 26 inches to 48 inches, until they settled on a width they felt worked best for them to walk through. After the VR simulations, individuals filled out questionnaires that ask about their experience and how confident they felt moving through the different scenes. Researchers call this innovative tool CODY, for Co-Design for You, since it allows people to determine for themselves what interior features may work best given their unique circumstances. CODY was tested among 15 individuals with Parkinson's and 24 healthy older adults.
This is the first time that someone is using it to see which home modifications would work better for people with mobility impairments. Virtual reality gives us a good opportunity to do a study like ours because it gives us the ability to provide kind of simulated environment that is very close to real environment, and people can envision themselves, can imagine that they are really in their bedrooms and they're walking towards the bathroom.
The research team has found that CODY was effective in detecting improved movement performance when participants with Parkinson's walk through a wider doorway compared to typical interior doors. They also found that those who had a chance to set up door features themselves had improved movement.
So we envision that therapists, neurologists, those with home modification services, they can use CODY with their patients and clients and help patients to experience multiple variations of home modifications and choose the one that works better for them. It will help them to have a longer independent life because they were engaged in these design decisions for their own homes.
I think this study could be beneficial to people by demonstrating ways that they could lessen their risk of falls, improve their functionality. I'm very happy where I am.
Good morning, all. Thank you, Dr. Portillo, and thank you all for joining us and watching the video with us. Since we have almost 10 minutes, I can elaborate on some aspects of the study that were not fully covered in the video. And then we would be happy to answer any questions. I'm here with Dr. Aronson and Dr. Sirnavasan. And if there's any question, we can answer. One thing about CODY that I can clarify here is that why we use changes in virtual doorways to test our virtual reality tool instead of any other environmental feature. The main reason is that doorways or in general, the locations that trigger freezing of gait among Parkinsonians, which is a major issue. They get to a doorway and it could be anywhere like a house front door or an elevator entry or a bathroom door. And then they freeze there, meaning that they cannot take even one more step, which really affects their functionality around the home and their independence. So there are a good number of studies on how changes in doorway and door openings affect indicators of freezing. Some of them have found that there is less chance of freezing when people with Parkinson's pass through a wider doorway compared to a narrower one. So that was why we wanted to do that. And from environmental design perspective, also, we know that the path from bedroom to bathroom among older adults in general and those with functional issues is where falls happen more than anywhere else at home. So that was also important for us. We wanted to see if we can test that feature and see any changes. Since our study was kind of the proof of principle, we wanted to see if we will see that the same impact like triggering freezing of gait at the doorway or not. But you noticed from the video that we also changed the door frame color and its contrast with the wall around it. It's important here to mention that people with Parkinson's, they perceive color differently. So what is usually impaired in their vision is the color contrast detection. And unfortunately, as their disease advances, they more and more lose their ability to detect color contrast. So we wanted to see if our tool will have the same effect on the vision as in their real life. So as healthy people, color contrast affects our perception of or dimension. It creates kind of illusion of dimension. So if you have a white background in front of you and you have two vertical black bars on the background, you would see them closer together, or you would perceive them closer together if those bars are black compared to when those are like light gray. So imagine for someone who has Parkinson's, if you change the color contrast in door frame, it shouldn't affect their perception of how wide the doorway is. So their motor functions would not be affected, or that was our hypothesis. So we observed that changes in color contrast did not affect their walking performance. So that was good, kind of a good sign for us, because it meant that the VR goggles created the same effect as in real life. But it was just the first step. It showed us that our tool has the potential to be used in home modifications, but we definitely want to test that with higher number of participants in the future. We were not able to, as you saw, the number of participants on the video, we were not able to collect data from equal number of participants with and without Parkinson's. So in the future, we want to do that to be able to do matched paired test analysis. We found that another good thing was that we found that the VR tool is easy to use, and it may not provoke anxiety when people use it. We also found that under some conditions, people with Parkinson's, for them, if they're able to use the features of interior design, kind of like interior design modifications, and they can manipulate them, it may result in better movement performance. So for the future, we're planning to further develop the tool, for example, by using more advanced technologies like wireless motion tracking system, and test it with more variety of walking patterns, because this time the walking path was straight, so we can test it with curved paths. And then now that we have observed that the impact of one interior design parameter on movement outcomes, we are definitely going to consider other interior features.
This is really excellent research, Professor Valaport. Thank you for sharing it with us. Does anyone else have a question or comment on the CODY research? So Dr. Platt had a question in the Q&A that Dr. Srinivasan answered, but her question was, do you see CODY being a viable tool in the future for aiding transition of care for patients?
So is it answer, or do you want me to let Ravi, could you unmute yourself?
Good morning, everybody. And I think Shabu clearly answered most of the questions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for sharing your research with us.
Sure, thank you.
I think the answer is right there under the Q&A. I did kind of talk about this. One thing which we were talking about is also kind of using some kind of a scanner in the actual house. So we scan the interior, and then we'd be able to kind of move that information to the VR headset. So that way, these patients would literally do some changes to their own houses in the virtual environment, which could then be kind of implemented in the actual house, could be retrofitted. So we haven't gone to that next step, but we are eagerly awaiting for a grant so that we can actually complete the next steps.
This is Sherry Aronson. I just wanted to also add that we see the tool used by rehabilitation specialists, occupational therapists in their center. So when they're working with clients, they can use a VR system for people, or eventually an AR system, to test it in their homes. And this is one of the reasons why it was funded by the Department of Veterans Affairs, because they do have a lot of medical and health centers for rehabilitation. And they saw this as value in assisting their work with their clients.
I see another question about if the number of doors and they need to pass and the turns will make any difference. That is what we are interested to really study in the next step, to see the number of turns and if the length of the path will change anything. So yeah, basically we don't know it yet, but we're interested to test that.